Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We'll be covering 4 topics. First, some updates on the free agent market over the weekend, what's going on, are there some new rumors, and just all about that in general. Next, we'll be talking about the biggest X factors for both AL and NL teams. These are players that are really just benefiting towards this team season. Not benefiting, but in a way, they're one of the big parts of the team season and how good they will be, and how impactful they will be, and how good the team will be in general. And finally, we'll be just going around some news around the league, including some news that broke this morning. Those are our 4 segments. But before we get into that, I would please ask you to like the show. Also, I get a lot of questions from viewers during the show. So to ensure your question gets read on the air, please use the tip and donations link, the one you see on the screen, streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. This puts your question at the top of the list so that I do read it if you do send one, and it also really does help the show. So thank you so much for that. All right, so we're going to be getting into our first segment here, and that is going to be updates on the free agent market. So obviously we know of what's going on with the free agent market right now. We have 3 really big free agents left. We have the reigning Cy Young winner Blake Snell. We have Cody Bellinger, a former MVP. And we have Matt Chapman, one of the better third basemen in baseball. Now, I've said this multiple times now, but it really is true that this is unprecedented. We've never had this much talent on the market when spring training is starting. Really, probably forever. Yes, we did have Bryce Harper and Manny Machado who were on the market around spring training time a few years ago, but they did sign eventually, and we're about to start games, and they haven't signed. So I think you can look back at the Bryce Harper and Manny Machado market, but I also think this is kind of a new thing of its own. Just these 3 players, and we don't even think they're close to signing. Maybe Blake Snell is the closest of them all, but we don't really know, and we're going to talk about it. So, let's get it on right here. So, first, we have, as the aforementioned, Cody Bellinger. So, Cody Bellinger, we all know who he is. He was former MVP with the Dodgers, struggled a couple of years, and went to the Cubs, had a great year, a real bounce back. And he went to free agency thinking, okay, I have my bounce back year. I showed everyone I can still play at a high level. I can still be a really good, impactful player in this league. I'm going to get my payday. And it hasn't happened yet. He's still in the market. There's some concerns about him that, some teams have voiced, like he didn't hit the ball very hard last season, which usually is an indicator of getting lucky and not as much future success in baseball. You have to look at these things. So just some updates on his market right now. The only real market we have, and this is kind of a joke, but at this point we're looking for anything. Lou Matino's famous Chicago deep dish pizza, very famous deep dish Chicago place, told him he will get free pizza for life if he gets the deal done with the Cubs. So that's a little fun thing to get involved in this, I guess, right? We're grasping at straws right now, grasping at anything that can mean any movement in the market. As a baseball fan, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of baseball fans watching this, I'm sure. We want to get this market moving. We want to see players sign. We want to see this get going. It's kind of boring right now. We want to see where they go. We want to get the season underway, and anything that can fix it right now is impactful to us. So that's why I did mention it. So just going over Bellinger's market right here, I'm going to list a few teams I think make some sense for him, and why as well. So first, we have the Cubs. As I just mentioned, he'll get a free deep dish for life if he signs there. So I'm sure that's an incentive. As a New Yorker, I don't think that's much of an incentive, but I'm sure for someone who lives in Chicago, it definitely is. So just looking at why the Cubs do make sense for Bellinger here, he's comfortable there. As we saw last year, his career was kind of in flux. We didn't know if he was very bad with the Cubs, was he going to play in the MLB again? I think that's a really fair criticism to ask, and something that could have happened. But thankfully for him, he had a great season, and I think he showed he was comfortable in Chicago. The Cubs liked him. He became a Cubs fan favorite because he was really good. I think that's all you have to do in Chicago, really. Just play good at baseball, and they'll like you, which he did. So it makes sense in that perspective, but there are some question marks with this. The first and big one really is Pete Crow Armstrong. Pete Crow Armstrong is one of the better prospects in baseball. He is looking to be the Cubs' future center fielder. Ever since he came over from the Mets in the Javi Baez trade, he has just flown up the rankings and really made himself to become one of the better prospects in baseball, and especially center field prospects. If he can develop his hitting to where teams think he can be a really, really good player. He has that glove right now. I think he'll immediately slide in as one of the better defending center fielders in baseball. So I don't know if the Cubs want to block him with re-signing a guy like Cody Bellinger, because you could now say, oh, well, you just put Bellinger at first where he's comfortable. Bellinger is a very good defender, like Pete Crow. So you put him at first, he's kind of losing a lot of the value that he brings, because defense obviously is much less important at first than center field. So as much as Bellinger to the Cubs may be the most likely scenario right now, just because of how comfortable he is and he played there last year, I don't know if it makes a ton of sense right now. That could change, but that's what I think. Next, we have the Phillies. The Phillies are kind of maybe a reach here, but I think you have to look at any teams right now. They were mentioned with him in some rumors as well. So we obviously know the Phillies, they love to spend money. Dombrowski loves to spend money, and not only that, Dombrowski loves his stars. And I think Bellinger with last year has proved himself to, again, be a star in this league. He's a guy you can market a team around. He is a guy that is, a casual baseball fan or someone who doesn't really know baseball, especially in Chicago, or maybe even in Philadelphia as well, you can go up to them and say, hey, do you know who Cody Bellinger is? They probably would say yes. So I think you look at that, you look at how Dombrowski likes to operate. Like I said, again, he loves his stars. And Bellinger, I think, definitely qualifies as a star here. So it makes sense in that. They haven't spent much money. Only things they spent on are with Whit Merrifield, who's a one-year deal, which they signed yesterday. On Friday, so over the weekend. Spencer Turnbull, just a depth pitcher, and Aaron Nola, who was a big contract, but was also a re-signing. It makes sense in that perspective. It doesn't, because they kind of have a lot of outfielders. They have a guy like Johan Rojas, who last year proved himself to be a really nice young star there for the Phillies, a really nice young guy to maybe build around. He showed he could play center field at a very high level, not only with his hitting, but with his fielding as well. So I don't know if the Phillies want to block him to get a guy like Bellinger, who may not age the greatest because of the concerns teams have, which is probably why he's on the market still. So I would look at this as a maybe. You also have guys like Castellanos and Schwarber. You'd probably have to trade one or the other if you sign Bellinger, because you'd probably move Marsh to left, Rojas to right, Bellinger to center, and you'd have Schwarber at DH or Castellanos at DH, and you'd probably trade one or the other. So it's kind of a weird fit, but again, you have to look at any possible teams right now with the players where they are on the market. Next, we have the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays obviously have money to spend. They lost out on Ohtani. They lost out on Soto. They lost out on Yamamoto. So they definitely have money to spend, and they could still be itching for a star. We thought at some point in the offseason that it was a lock that the Blue Jays would get Ohtani or Soto, and they didn't get either, obviously, and one of them went to their biggest rival. So they could still be itching to get a star, one of the bigger guys in the market. And I think Bellinger does make a lot of sense for Toronto. They need a lefty bat. They don't really have center field locked up except for Kevin Kiermaier, but it's only a one-year deal, and he can easily be a bench bat or a guy that fills in an injury. I don't think re-signing Kevin Kiermaier to a one-year deal precludes you so much to signing a star like Bellinger. So I think that would make a lot of sense for the Blue Jays. I could see it if his market really does drop. I don't think they're in the time right now where they really want to spend that much money, just because of how late it is in the offseason. So I think it's kind of an iffy fit money-wise and organizational-wise, but baseball-wise, I really love the fit. I think, sorry about that. I don't know why that happened. I turned the light on. That's not good. Hold on. Give me a second. Sorry. Sorry about that. I turned the light on. I don't know why it happened in this room. But to keep going here, like I said, I think it makes a lot of sense baseball-wise for the Blue Jays. They need a lefty bat. They need a center fielder. So I think, again, baseball-wise, it makes a lot of sense. But I don't think they'll spend the money this late in the offseason. They could surprise me. This offseason is mid full of surprises, but I don't know. Wrapping it up here with Bellinger, the Angels. They have money to spend. Obviously, they did not re-sign Ohtani. When you don't re-sign the best player in baseball, you have a lot of money to spend. This would also help them move Trout to a corner spot, make him age better, make that contract potentially worth it, because Trout has struggled over the past few years. He still is Mike Trout, but he has kind of not been as great as before. Also, John Heyman said their baseball people like him, so I think that could mean something if their baseball people see something in him that we don't as the public. I think they have a decent young core in place as well. Bellinger, I think, would kind of be an accessory to that. Guys like Zach Neto, guys like Logan O'Hoppe, you could add into that young hitting core. So, yeah, I think it makes some sense, but I don't really know. To wrap it up here, I don't know where Bellinger goes. I really have zero clue. I don't want to make an uninformed guess. There's just been really no rumors. I think the Cubs are the most likely one, but again, I don't think it makes much baseball sense. So I really couldn't give you a fair guess right here. So I'm not going to. He's a good player. I just don't know where the fit is for Bellinger right now. Next, we're going to move on to a guy who's been in the news a good amount recently, Blake Snell. Blake Snell, I think what's going on with him, right now is Bob Nightingale, who, we take Nightingale with a grain of salt, but he's right about some things. He says the Yankees are seriously interested on him on a short-term deal with high AAV, which I think makes a lot of sense. Snell to the Yankees has been something that's rumored for really all of the offseason right now. So if his market really falls, he could say, okay, I want a low-term deal. I could hit the market next year or the year after, get my money as well, and still get a big contract. So I think it will make a lot of sense. So we're going to go to the teams that fit Snell right now, and we're just going to add on to it with the Yankees, like I mentioned. They showed interest for in the offseason. This would really solidify their pitching depth with they have a good amount of injury risk on that staff. It's a good staff if everyone stays healthy, but I don't know if they will. And, of course, he is a former teammate of newly acquired superstar Juan Soto. I don't think that hurts. Next, we have the Angels. They have, again, the same things with Bellinger. They have money to spend after Ohtani left. They need pitching, and Snell lives in Southern California during the offseason. So maybe he would take some less money to go stay in the area he's living in right now. I think it would make some sense. The Angels, of course, always need pitching. Artie Moreno loves spending money. So I think it will make some sense. Seattle. Now, you may be wondering why would Seattle be interested? And that would be a really good point. Seattle has a lot of good young pitching. Really one of the better young pitching cores in baseball, probably next to teams like the Marlins. But Snell is from Seattle. There's been some rumors that he would like to go back home, and that while it doesn't make the most sense, he would take less money. We don't know if these are confirmed, but that's what we've heard, and it would make sense. He reps Seattle a lot on social media, big Seahawks fan as well, so maybe he would go back to Seattle, go back home, take a shorter price. If he were to sign with the Mariners, which is unlikely, but again, we're just listing options here, it would allow them to trade from their young influx of pitching depth and maybe get a good bat to build around. And, getting a guy like Snell in there would give you that possibility. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think it makes some sense if he wants to take a hometown discount. And just because of that in general. The Giants. That's my next team. My next player, so we'll get to that. But for Snell, I think he probably goes to the Angels. I just think they make the most sense with the pitching needs, him living in Southern California, Artie Moreno loving to spend money. So I think it makes a lot of sense for him to go to the Angels. Again, I don't really know because he's still in the market, so we don't know. But I think the Angels, as of right now, do make the most sense. And the last player we're going to be talking about for the updates on the free agent market, that is Matt Chapman. So updates with him is that the Giants, they said they're probably done adding significant players, and they feel pretty set right now, which I think is a huge blow to his market. I had him going to the Giants for a long time. I still kind of do think he ends up there, but we'll get to that. And I thought it was just made the most sense. So it was kind of a big shock to a lot of people that maybe the Giants aren't going to be signing Chapman like we all expected. So to go into the Giants here is a fit for Chapman. They still make sense, I believe. He's from the Bay Area. He played under Bob Melvin. They have a good relationship. Their third baseman right now is J.D. Davis, who is a fine player, but I think getting to upgrade with a player like Matt Chapman would be really good. I don't think you should close the door for that. So, the Cubs. The Cubs, I think, still need to make a big splash. They obviously have Craig Counsell, who was their big splash at the start, but he is a manager. Shoto Imanaga, Hector Neris, fine players, but not the big splash you're looking for if you're a Cubs fan, I think. I think Chapman will represent that. They could definitely use an upgrade at third base. Patrick Wisdom, Nick Madrigal, the guys there, they're fine players, but getting a guy like Chapman would really solidify it, get you another star in that lineup, big bat. So it makes some sense for the Cubs. The Blue Jays, his whole team, they could definitely improve at third base. They have Eduardo Escobar there, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, Kevin Biggio, all fine players. But are those guys you really want to be starting when you're trying to win a World Series? I don't know. I think Chapman makes sense baseball-wise, but I think he kind of wore out his welcome there with the fan base. He was really an inconsistent hitter, and some fans kind of turned on him at the end. So I don't know how he would fit going back to Toronto. But it makes a lot of sense baseball-wise, and if his market really does fall, I think it makes sense just to go back to his team. So, for Chapman's market, I kind of think this could be a mystery team jumping in, just because with the Giants potentially being out, I don't know where else he would land. Maybe the team like the Yankees, maybe a team like the Mariners, someone else, I don't know. But that's what I think right now for him. And overall, that's what I think for the market. So, those are my thoughts on the three bigger free agents left on the market. We're going to be taking a quick break here, but then we'll go to segment 2, which is going to be X factors for each AL team. We'll get into that. But first, we're going to take a break. So here we go. Thanks.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on their fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Before we go to our segment 2, I would just like to ask you again to please donate to the show, tip as well. It really does help us. It really is appreciated. So again, streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork /tip. It really does help, and it really does make a difference. So thank you so much for that if you do decide to do it. And thank you for viewing as well. So next, we're going to be talking about our second segment here, and that is going to be X Factors. So we're going to be doing this for both leagues. So first, we're going to be doing it for the American League. So X Factors to me are just players that really can single-handedly change the course of a team's season. I think they're one of the bigger parts of the season. They can make it either so much better or so much more inconsistent and so much more not as good in a way. We're going to start off first with the Yankees. And you might be thinking, okay, well, it's Juan Soto. It's got to be Juan Soto. They traded for him for a reason. He's one of the better players in baseball. But I was very close to picking Juan Soto, but I think in the end, any Yankees fan would tell you that the X factor for their season is going to be Carlos Rodon. Rodon was signed to a huge contract last offseason after coming off of great years with the White Sox and the Giants. He did not have a good season, to put it lightly. He was not good. He was very hurt, and when he was pitching, he didn't pitch very well. Got into some beefs with the fans, and it just wasn't a great first season in pinstripes for Carlos Rodon. if he does stay healthy, if he is who they paid for, he gives them a legitimate number 2 in that rotation behind Garrett Cole and just makes them so much more deeper. If Rodon plays to his strengths, you have Cole, Rodon, Stroman, Cortez, Schmidt, other guys who come up like Clayton Beater, Will Warren, just makes their rotation so much more better, so much more deeper, so much more better. I'm gonna say that again. So much more better if Rodon can play up to standard. So I think he's really the biggest X factor for them right now. Going to Toronto here, I have their biggest X factor as Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I think this is the easy answer, and I'm going to go with it. He had a down year last year, 118 WRC plus, 1 WAR, 800 OPS. Those are fine numbers, but they're not numbers you expect from a guy like Vladdy, who was an MVP candidate a few years ago. He's on the cover of MLB The Show, which I think definitely brings some more eyes to him, brings some more attention, brings some more pressure. If he can go back to what we know that he can do, being an MVP caliber player, being one of the better hitters in baseball, living up to his top prospect, generational prospect moniker, he just makes that lineup so much more better. He makes that team so much more better. He makes it so much more consistent. Again, he didn't have a bad year last year. It's just not what we expect. It was definitely a down year for his standards. We've seen some workout pictures. He looks skinny. He looks good. Looks ready to go. So I'm hoping for Blue Jays fans' sakes, he's much better, and he is the Vladdy we know he can be. Next, we have Tampa. Tampa's had a very interesting offseason. And I think their biggest X factor is Aaron Savali. Obviously was acquired in a midseason trade last year at the deadline. Was there to give them a lot more pitching after a lot of their pitchers got hurt. And I think it's the same reason why I have him as the X factor now. Just because of how much pitching the Rays are going to be losing because of injuries. Shane McClanahan out for the year. Jeffrey Springs, Drew Rasmussen might return at the end of the year. Shane Baz is injured, going to return probably in the half side. They obviously traded Tyler Glass now. So I think if Savali can step up to be another real legit guy behind Zach Eflin, he makes that team a lot more better. He makes that rotation a lot better. So it would make the Rays much better. Also, guys like Taj Bradley, Ryan Pepio, they need to step up as well. Just overall, those guys, mainly Aaron Savali, those guys are X factors for the team, and would just make them so much more better than they can be, and really live to their potential as well. Next, we have Baltimore. So I think it's clear what it is, and that is Corbin Burns. They traded for him for a reason. He's going to be the ace they need in Baltimore. They have a great young team, a great young hitting core, but they need some pitching. And I think Corbin Burns absolutely helps with that. He needs to. That's why you acquire him. Especially now, you have your co-ace and quote unquote Kyle Bradish. He is going to be out for, we don't know. They don't think it's long, but it's an elbow injury, and that's not good for a pitcher. We all know what elbow injuries can lead to. We don't want to say it because we don't want to jinx them, but we know, as baseball fans, we know what it can lead to. So I think Corbin Burns definitely has to step up more now. He, of course, had to be a great pitcher before, but even more now with the Bradish injury. So, yeah, I think Corbin Burns is the X factor for the Orioles. Red Sox, Brian Bayo. He needs to be the ace they need. He's a really good young player that I think needs to step up if the Red Sox want to make any noise at all. I believe in him. I think he's going to be really good, and I think it's all about putting it together this year and really being the pitcher that Red Sox fans want and the Red Sox need in general as a team. Cleveland, going to the AL Central now. Kyle Manzardo. We mentioned his trade partner, Aaron Savali, before. He was traded to Cleveland for Aaron Savali. When they acquired him in the trade, I thought it was a great move. I didn't expect to get someone as good as Manzardo for Savali. He's a top first base prospect, a really great hitter, a guy I think can make the Guardians lineup so much more better if he can live to his potential, be the slugging first baseman I think he can be. So I think he's an X factor for this Guardians team. I really think he can make them a lot more better than they are right now, and a lot better than they can be. The Royals. I think it's pretty clear that it's Bobby Witt Jr. They gave him the contract extension for a reason. They believe in him. They want to make him the face of the franchise, as they should. He has a lot of expectations with that contract, and especially with the moves the Royals made this offseason to get them back into contention. And I think he's going to be at the forefront of that, to getting Royals baseball back to where they would like it to be. The Tigers. it's Spencer Torkelson. I think it's pretty clearly Spencer Torkelson. He needs to live up to expectations he had of being the first overall pick. He didn't have a great first 2 years. He got better last year at the second half, definitely, but he needs to put it all together to a full season. I don't think the Tigers are in rebuild anymore. Are they a World Series contender? Probably not, but they can be a really good team. They added some guys like Jack Flaherty who can make them a lot better, some bullpen arms as well that can make them pretty nice. Got other young stars like Riley Green. So if Torkelson can be really good, can live to the expectations that are placed upon him and made him the first overall pick, the Tigers can be so much better and really just improve a lot. So I would look at him. Twins, Carlos Correa. They paid Carlos Correa to be Carlos Correa, and he hasn't been the Carlos Correa we know. He's been a good player, but I think he needs to pick it up. I think he needs to be the superstar we knew in Houston, and I think he's already a leader for that Minnesota team. We're not complaining about that, but he's a really good player, and I think he needs to show why they paid him all this money and why 3 different teams tried to get him at one point in the offseason, and they all agreed to contracts with him. So he did pick it up in the second half, to be fair to him, but still needs to improve a little bit and kind of be the player that Minnesota wants and Minnesota paid for. The White Sox. Gonna go over this one pretty quickly here. It's Dylan Cease, not because he's gonna try to get them to the playoffs, but because the White Sox are really bad, and if Dylan Cease can bounce back, they can get a haul for him at the deadline, an absolute haul, not a franchise-changing haul, but a lot of good prospects. The White Sox are really bad. Not a big surprise I'm saying that. They're really, really bad. They're not good. They want to ship out Dylan Cease. I think it's pretty clear with the offseason. They've had shopping him around, so if he's good, he goes back to what he was. I think it makes White Sox fans' lives a lot easier because they'll get a lot more prospects and they'll maybe jump up that rebuild a little more. So, going to the AL West now, we have the Angels to start off with, and what do you know? It's Mike Trout. It has to be Mike Trout. Obviously, the Angels are going to be not as good as before. They weren't that good before, but they're still not going to be that great, considering they lost the best player in baseball. So it's kind of hard to pick that up and get that value back. But they have Mike Trout, who was known as the best player in baseball for a long time, is in some people's eyes the greatest player of all time, or was on that track at least. We don't know how it is now because of his injuries. But, if he's the Mike Trout of old, where he stays healthy for at least 140 games or something like that, we don't need him to play all 162. He's not going to do that at this point in his career. But if he can play like 140, 130, something like that, be the Mike Trout we know of, the stats, the MVP every single year, the guy that didn't get MVP a few years because people are like, oh, he'll just get it every year. We'll give it to someone new. That's how good he was. If he can be that Mike Trout, the Mike Trout of old, they can be so much better, and maybe not as bad. The Astros, it's Justin Verlander. If he stays healthy, their pitching is going to be so much better than it is right now. He needs to stay healthy for that team. Obviously, he's fighting some injuries right now as well. We know the injury he's had to start off spring. He's behind in his throwing calendar. So, it's not great right now for him, but he needs to step up, stay healthy. And if he does, the Astros pitching is going to be so much better, and the team will be much better as well. And I think a lot of the season rides on him. Especially now, you're going to have a little more eyes on him. Especially in New York, you had the Drew Gobert trade to get him back to Houston. Instead of paying him, you just traded for him and got his contract at a discount. He had a little vacation in New York, I guess, before going back to Houston. So Drew Gobert's looking like a star with the Mets. You traded him for Verlander, also Ryan Clifford. So if Verlander doesn't stay healthy, if the Astros don't do much this season and burn out in the playoffs, and Gilbert and Clifford become really good players with the Mets, I think it's going to be looked at as a pretty horrible trade for a long time. So I think Verlander needs to step it up, and I think he needs to play better for the Astros to be as good as they can be. The A's, going to go over this one quickly. It's kind of like the White Sox. They're really bad, but they have Brent Rooker, who had one of the better first halves in baseball last year, was a really good hitter for them, played the DH well. If he can play that well again, they'll get a haul from at the deadline. I don't know if he'll play that good again. I thought it was kind of a fluke, maybe a little bit of a linsanity, quote unquote. Whoever remembers that. But if he performs to form again, sorry, that was a little bit of a tongue twister. It can make them a better team and can get them a better prospect haul at the deadline. So, Julio Rodriguez for the Mariners. We're jumping to them next. I think it's pretty clear that he's the X Factor. He's the X Factor always. He's their best player. He's their young star. He's their superstar. He's their face of the franchise. He's the determining factor, single-handedly, in my opinion, if they will be good or if they will be bad. If he performs to what we can be, what he's performed in the past, the Mariners could be a really good team that makes the playoffs, maybe even fights for the AL West crown with the question marks about the Astros and the Rangers. So I think he's going to be always the X factor with who he is and what his contract was and how they've built the franchise around him, really. So yeah, I think Julio Rodriguez easily the X factor for Seattle. And finally, for the AL, we have Texas, the defending world champions. Fitting to end with them. I think the X factor is Nathan Eovaldi. Their pitching is a big question mark right now. Nathan Eovaldi was an ace for the Rangers last year. Didn't think much of the contract when he signed it with Texas, but he proved me wrong. Proved a lot of people wrong. Was really good with them. So he needs to step up again, be that guy. The projections don't have him doing well, but as we've seen, projections a lot of the time are wrong. So if he wants to, I think he should prove that wrong. Show why he's the ace of that staff. He definitely needs to step up more now with Jordan Montgomery probably not coming back. DeGrom and Scherzer are out till the middle of the year, maybe even longer because they are older. We don't know how they're going to, rehab and all that. So, yeah, Nathan Eovaldi needs to step up, needs to be their ace, and he's the big X factor. If he can be the pitcher they need him to be, I think the Rangers will be a lot better than they look right now. But we don't know yet. So, just to recap, Yankees, Carlos Rodon. Blue Jays, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Rays, Aaron Savali. Orioles, Corbin Burns. Red Sox, Brian Bayo. Cleveland, Kyle Manzardo. Royals, Bobby Witt Jr. Tigers, Spencer Torkelson. Twins, Carlos Correa. White Sox, Dylan Cease. Angels, Mike Trout. Astros, Justin Verlander. Oakland, Brent Rooker. Oakland for now, I should say. Seattle, Julio Rodriguez. And the defending world champions, Texas Rangers, Nathan Eovaldi. So, that was the X Factor for every AL team, and that was our second segment. So, we'll be taking a little break here, but we'll be showing you our third segment, which is going to be X Factors for each NL team. So, we did AL. We're going to do NL next. So, we're going to go to a break, but after that, we'll see you then, and we'll talk about it. So, thanks.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Last segment, of course, we did talk about the biggest X factors for each AL team. So I think it's only fitting to go into the biggest X factors for each AL team and what's going on with that. So, so we're going to start off with the Atlanta Braves here and their biggest X factor. So, to me, the biggest X factor for the Braves is newly acquired Chris Sale. This trade came really as a shocker to me and to a lot of baseball fans, I think. I didn't think Chris Sale would actually be traded. He kind of felt like one of those guys that was going to be in rumors for the entirety of his career, but never actually pulled the trigger. But he eventually did, and he got traded to Atlanta. The Braves have obviously had a good amount of pitching problems in the playoffs the last few years. It's one of the main reasons why they haven't gotten past the first round since they did win the World Series. So I think if Chris Sale is healthy, if he's up to the Chris Sale that we know, I think he can fix those problems. He can make the team a lot better, not only in the playoffs and what goes on there, but in the regular season as well. So I think Chris Sale definitely one of the bigger X factors for a team this offseason and especially for Atlanta. Next, we have Miami. To me, it's Yuri Perez. Yuri Perez needs to be an ace with Sandy Alcantara out for the season with Tommy John. Yuri Perez showed a lot of flashes last year, a lot of great stuff. He was one of the better pitching prospects in baseball for the past few years for a reason. He came up and did not disappoint. I think he's going to be really good. As a fan of a team in the NL East, I think he's going to be a thorn on our side for a long time. So, yeah, I mean, if he can be the player that they want him to be, that they need him to be, that he can be, that he was supposed to be, the Marlins can, they can be competitive potentially. They made the playoffs last year. They did lose a good amount of pieces, but you're getting guys like Jake Berger, like Josh Bell for a full season. So who knows? If Yuri Perez can be the ace they need with Alcantara out filling in for his spot, creating a dynamic number 1-2 punch with him and Luzardo, you can be a really good team, be a team that's probably better on the field than on paper right now. So I think it's big for Yuri Perez and the Marlins. The Mets. I was with two players here, but I inevitably ended on Luis Severino. If he can regain his Yankees form, I mean, that Mets rotation just can be so much better. Kodai Senga, I think legitimate ace. Jose Quintana, pretty good starter. Luis Severino, if he can be the Yankees Sevy, makes them so much better, especially depth-wise and especially how much they did struggle last year. So I think it makes, I think he can take this team to a whole new level if he's healthy and he's good. From all the things he said, I'm definitely drinking the Kool-Aid on him. I definitely think he can be really good again and regain his form. I was with him and Starling Marte. I think Marte can transform the Mets lineup if he's healthy, but I think the Mets lineup is a little bit more of a strength in the pitching, so I went with Severino. But I think both are definitely in this ballpark for biggest X factor. Phillies, Johan Rojas. We talked about him before with Cody Bellinger, but if he can repeat last year, he makes that team so much more better, not only with his hitting, with having a consistent bat in center field, which they lacked for a little bit, even after getting Brandon Marsh. It's with his defense. He's a really good defender, was last year. I think his defense just transforms this Phillies team to another level, makes him so much better. So I think Johan Rojas, with his offense, with his defense, just is a big X factor for this Phillies team and can make them so much better. And yeah, I would look at him. Washington. This might be a little bit of a funny pick per se, but to me, I think it is Joey Gallo. The Nationals. Let's just be frank here. They're not going to be very good. We know this. They're not trying to be very good. They have a young core. They're rebuilding. But they signed a guy they signed Joey Gallo to a 1-year contract. I guess hoping he can be good, maybe hoping he can get back to Texas form, which he hasn't been for a good amount of years now, but who knows. If he is good, I think it's something for the Nationals. They can get something for him at the deadline. Nationals are going to be very boring. They're going to be young, not very good, so you got to pick someone here, and I think it's Joey Gallo. It's kind of in the same boat as the A's and the White Sox. You want your players to perform, not because they'll be a part of the future, but because you want to trade them at the deadline, get some good prospects, get something good back for them, and transform that team and that young core even more. So that was it. The East. We're going to jump to the Central now. We have the Brewers. The Brewers, they need an ace. And to me, the X factor has to be Freddie Peralta. If the Brewers want to be competitive at all this year, he has to step up and be an ace. They obviously traded Corbin Burns. Brandon Woodruff's out for most of the year. They did re-sign him today, which we'll talk about later. But, yeah, he's still out for most of the year, probably all of it. But if they want to be at all competitive, Milwaukee, Freddie Peralta needs to pitch like an ace. He needs to pitch like the guy that's top of the rotation. And, the Central is winnable. That's why I'm not giving up on the Brewers entirely. So I think it all really depends. A lot of it depends on Freddie Peralta. The Cubs. We're going to talk about the aforementioned Pete Crow Armstrong. We talked about him when we talked about the free agents on the market and Bellinger. If he can play to his potential, the Cubs can be so much better. He patrols center field with an amazing glove. Probably one of the better in the entire league, as soon as he comes up. So, he can just make that team so much better. He's a big X factor for them. Obviously not a guy that everyone's looking for right now. When you think of the Cubs, I don't think you think of him. But if he can come up, play to his potential, play like the top prospect he is, he makes the Cubs a lot better. The Reds. This is kind of like PCA here. It's Ellie De La Cruz, just a young prospect who needs to come up, make some noise, would change the dynamic of this team almost immediately. So I think Ellie makes I think he's the big X factor here. Obviously, he didn't have the best season last year. It wasn't bad, but it was a rookie season. He did show flashes of just his raw power, his raw athleticism, how good he is at the game of baseball. And that needs to translate to stats if the Reds want to make some noise in the Central and win it, like I think they can. The Pirates. It's O'Neal Cruz. Obviously, we know of O'Neal Cruz as kind of the guy who was launching homers 500 feet left and right this year before. But last year, he got into a freak injury, not his fault, and he got injured, and he was out the entirety of the year except for 9 games. So if he stays healthy, plays to his potential, like I said with the other two, he can be a spark for this young Pirates team that's hungry, that wants to go back to competitiveness, that wants to give this fan base a winner. As you're seeing kind of now, a lot of young players in the Central Division, a good young division that I think is going to get better with time, better with age, and better with maturity. So I like that. But yeah, for the Pirates, definitely O'Neal Cruz. If he can be a franchise guy, shortstop position, be a guy that was on the prospects list for so long, guy that can just be dynamic, transform that team and organization, it helps him so much. Finally, we have the Cardinals. It's not one of their young hitters. It's going to be, for me, Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn was a very interesting signing for the Cardinals, to say the least. We expected them to add 3 really good pitchers, and instead they added the Cy Young runner-up and 2 older guys who haven't had a great season in a couple of years. But Lance Lynn, obviously, we know of him. He was with the Cardinals for a long time. Kind of a homecoming here. Maybe he feels more comfortable in St. Louis and the Cardinals see something in him that we don't. That's entirely possible. I'm not going to doubt that. But if he's good, to me, that takes the Cardinals' rotation just a whole nother level. It makes them so much better. And to me, the Cardinals' rotation does not have to be great. It doesn't have to be good even. It has to be passable. Sonny Gray, I think, was a good addition. But if the rotation is passable, they can easily win the Central. They have such a good young hitting core with veterans scattered around like Nolan Arenado, like Paul Goldschmidt, of course, but Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn, just other guys coming up in that team, Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, just so many good young hitters that all that's really missing is just a passable rotation, even a passable one, not even a good one, just one that can throw decent innings. If you get that, you can be a much better team, and a team that I think would be the favorite for the NL Central. So I think a lot of it relies on not only Lance Lynn, who I mentioned, but Kyle Gibson, who was also signed to be a veteran innings eater. Finally, we have the West. We're going to talk about the reigning NL pennant champions, and that is Eduardo Rodriguez. I love the signing for them. I thought it was great value, made a lot of sense. Creates a great top 3 there with him, Zach Gallen, and Merrill Kelly. So to me, if he can perform to what they signed him for, which was to be a really good number 3 starting pitcher, that takes them to where they may even be the best team in the NL and NL West, even above the Dodgers with all the moves they made. I mean, just an incredible rotation, in my opinion. We saw what they could do last year in the playoffs. I feel like people are underrating them a little bit, not giving them the credit they deserve. I think Eduardo Rodriguez is a big X factor in their season and can really influence how their team plays. We talked about the Dodgers with the Diamondbacks, so it's only fitting to go to them. And to me, it's Tyler Glasnow. Glasnow kind of has not gotten as much media coverage as he was getting before because he's kind of overshadowed with Ohtani and Yamamoto coming to the Dodgers in the same offseason. But Glasnow, I think, is the big X factor here. You look at the Dodgers rotation, there's a lot of question marks. You have Yamamoto, who I think is going to be very good. I want to make that very clear. I'm a big believer in him. That's why I wanted my team to give him $700. I want, not $700 million, sorry, I was thinking of Ohtani, $300 million. and I'm a big believer in the Dodgers contract they gave him will be good, and he will be good. But this is his first year in the MLB, of course. So he's going to have some question marks. He's going to have some learning curves. You have Walker Buehler, who's coming off major injury, Bobby Miller, Emmett Sheehan, who are good young players, but again, good young players. James Paxton, who has some injury risk, which we saw in his delayed physical. And so I think it all leads down to Tyler Glasnow. If Glasnow can be really good, be the pitcher that they traded for, it will make the teams just so much more better. So much better. I don't know why I keep saying so much more better. My apologies. So much better. And really gives that rotation life, makes it, gives them so much more depth, and kind of evens out the question marks in the rotation. So next we're going to move to the Dodgers' biggest rival, or to the other side of California, the Padres. To me, it's Michael King. They traded for him for a reason. If he can, I almost went with Fernando Tatis Jr. here. I think most people would. But if King can replicate the success he had as a starting pitcher with the Yankees, it takes the Padres to a whole new level. Their ceiling goes way up as a team with all the question marks they have. So, yeah, I definitely think it's Michael King. They traded. He was someone they sought out in the Juan Soto trade talks for a reason. It's because he's really good and is going to be really good. So I definitely think it's Michael King. The Giants. I'm going to go with an interesting name here. A lot of people haven't heard of him, but it's Keaton Winn. You might be asking, who is that and why is he an X factor with all the other superstars that I've listed, like Tyler Glasnow, like Guado Rodriguez, Michael King. Really good players. Well, the Giants have a lot of pitching risk. They have a lot of injuries. Alex Cobb, Robbie Ray, not going to be back till the second half of the season at best. So you need someone to step up and be in that rotation with Jordan Hicks, who's also a question mark, with Logan Webb, who's the undeterred ace. But Keaton Winn, to me, is a big chance for a breakout season. He has one of the better off-speed pitches in baseball, according to a lot of metrics. I think if he puts it all together, he can be a really good pitcher for San Francisco, solidify that rotation with all the injuries they have, and just make them a much better team than in the first half because of the injuries. Finally, we have the Rockies, who are one of the most irrelevant teams in current baseball. I guess it's Nolan Jones to see if he can be a long-term piece, repeat the season he had. Again, the Rockies are just kind of there. They like the team, you pass by. They just exist. So I guess it's Nolan Jones, but not really set with this one because it could be anyone because they're the Rockies. We don't really know. So that was the end of segment 3. We're going to go to another break here, but before we do, we're going to show you a little preview of segment 4, and that is going to be news around the league. Just what's going on, some news stories I thought were interesting and couldn't really talk about for a full segment, but definitely want to talk about in general. And if you're a baseball fan, you're a fan of sports, you know what happened this morning. A few people signed, so we're definitely going to talk about that. So we're going to go to a break, and then we'll get back to our fourth and final segment. So thanks. And we're back for our fourth and final segment. And as I said before, this is just going to be recapping some news around the league, a good amount of stories. We actually have a good amount of baseball news, so I'm very excited. Usually we would have that on Mondays, but this is news that happened today, not just over the weekend. So that is very exciting to me. and I'm sure to people who are watching this, 'cause I'm sure you like baseball as well. So, first we're going to talk about news that broke earlier this morning. I made a short on this as well, so be sure to check that out on the YouTube channel. Liam Hendriks, he is signing with the Boston Red Sox on a 2-year deal worth $20 million with a mutual option for the third. Now, this is something that is very interesting to me. I actually had a full segment dedicated to him and the player we're going to talk about next. I'm sure you can guess who that is. So that is on our YouTube channel as well, so if you want to check that out, it's about injured free agents. So, yeah, Liam Hendriks, this is interesting. So we heard Wednesday that Jeff Passan reported, the top baseball insider, of course, that Liam Hendriks has set a hard deadline for Thursday to sign with the team. He had multiple offers, and he was weighing it, and he was going to sign. So I was like, okay, cool. He's going to sign. We're going to get some baseball news. I get to talk about it on the show. It's going to be great. But then he didn't sign. So I thought, okay, you know what? He's rehabbing from injury. He just got over cancer. First of all, what a warrior this guy is. I mean, incredible guy. Just he had cancer, beat that, and then had Tommy John. Just horrible circumstances for him. But the fact that he's fighting back and going to play baseball soon, by next year, is just incredible to me. So good for him. So I was like, okay, he's not going to sign. Going to take a year off, rehab on his own, then sign with the team next year when he's healthy. I thought, okay, not a big deal. Fine. A lot of players probably do it. But he instead is signing with the Red Sox. So this is very interesting. The team fit as well is really interesting. Obviously, the Red Sox, I didn't think would be in a market kind of like Hendriks. They actually have a pretty good bullpen. You have guys like Chris Martin, who are at the top end of that. Kenley Jansen, of course, who we thought was going to be traded, but probably is not going to be now with how late we are in the offseason. Spring training game starting in 5 days. And his injury as well, which probably affects it to add on. So, yeah, I think this is an interesting fit for him. I think it's a good fit, though. They rehabbing with the Red Sox, comes back next year, becomes their closer immediately. Jansen, I would be shocked if he's re-signed with the Dodgers. I mean, Red Sox, kind of shocked if he would be on the team at that point. He's probably a major trade candidate for the deadline. So he becomes their closer. Hopefully can bounce back. I think he can. If anyone can, it's him. Bring some juice to that pen. Brings, he was one of the better closers in baseball when healthy. So Red Sox are betting on the potential here. When he does come back, I assume you're going to be paying him $10 million. Or I'm not sure if the contract's structured a different way. I don't believe that's come out yet. Maybe he's getting paid less this year, more next year. Definitely possible. But you got a great arm for the back of your bullpen. A guy you can really count on to close games, get in that 9th inning. And you'll probably be better next year. So you have a piece to add for next year ready. So I like the fit for Hendriks. I like the fit for the Red Sox as well. I thought it was interesting. I didn't think he would all sign with the Red Sox. I kind of thought the Dodgers, even after some cold water was put on that by Robert Murray, an insider. But I still thought they made a lot of sense. But going to the Red Sox, again, a big market team. So good for him. Good for Red Sox fans finally signing someone. Of course, the signing isn't going to affect them this year, but it's still a good signing. So give the Red Sox credit for that. Next, we're going to talk about another injured free agent who is going to be out probably all of the year, and that is Brandon Woodruff. So both Brandon Woodruff and Liam Hendriks, who are in the same boat, signed this morning. And Brandon Woodruff went back to his old team, Milwaukee. Obviously, we know what happened with Brandon Woodruff. If you don't, he was non-tendered. He got injured in the offseason at the end of the year, both kind of. And he had surgery, and he was going to be out for most of the year. Probably the earliest he would come back is late August, early September, or, we don't even know if he's going to pitch we don't even know if he's going to pitch next year. So, yeah. So I think it was a good fit for him to go back to Milwaukee. I think going back to a place you're comfortable in when rehabbing injury definitely makes a lot of sense for you. I was hoping, I thought a team like the Mets made a lot of sense for him. David Stearns being in there, knowing him very well. The Mets aren't going to be competitive till next year, so I thought it made sense in that way. But yeah, I thought that made sense. But going back to Milwaukee again, I think it's a good fit for Brandon. getting to a place you're comfortable in, rehabbing there. Makes all the sense in the world. We didn't really have many rumors about him, so good for his camp for keeping it quiet, I guess. So I didn't really know where he was going to sign. He, in the end, went back to his old team. So, yeah, Milwaukee, I think, is going to be a good team next year. You get Woodruff back, obviously a 2-year deal. You have him, Freddie Peralta, to anchor the rotation. Maybe DL Hall, who you traded for, Corbin Burns for, becomes a really good pitcher. You have a nice top 3 there. They have a good young hitting core, headlined by guys like Sal Frelick, by, of course, Jackson Chourio, who they extended for a long time. So, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for the player. I think it makes a lot of sense for the team. Overall, a good signing in general for both. I thought I'm finally excited we get some news. Again, so I talked about it before, but I don't think the Brewers are going to be very competitive this season. I just don't see it. They traded Burns. Woodruff's obviously not going to be a factor with how long he's most likely going to be out. Freddie Peralta being your number 1 guy, not ideal, I would say. So, yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense, though, because I think they could be good. They're probably going to be good next year with all the prospects developing, coming up, getting used to. So you add Woodruff, a really good pitcher, maybe an ace. You could argue an ace in this league. So I think it makes a lot of sense for both Milwaukee versus Woodruff. So, yeah. Next, we're going to talk about 2 Mets signings here, minor league. Kind of in the same boat as well. You'll see why. Luke Voit going back to them on a minor league deal, played in Syracuse last season for a little bit, and Ji-Man Choi going to them on a split contract. So they added 2 of the same player, which is interesting. Both Ji-Man Choi, Luke Voit, of course, first base DH types, kind of 4A type players where they're too good for AAA but aren't good in the MLB where they have a starting spot. So, I thought these signings were interesting. If Choi makes the MLB roster, he makes $3.5 million, which is kind of expensive for a depth guy. I'm kind of a little perplexed by these signings, to be honest. I understand it's depth, but how much first base depth do you need with Voit and Choi? So I thought Voit coming back, though, first for him was nice for the Mets. I think it brings good depth, just a good bench bat if someone does get hurt. He can hit righties pretty well. We don't know about lefties, but he hits righties really well. Obviously had pretty good seasons with the Yankees. Not a decent season with the Nationals and the Padres. So I thought it was good depth for the Mets. I thought it was a good choice to bring him back. Again, you always need depth, especially a team like the Mets who are just always plagued by injuries, it seems. So, yeah, that's made a lot of sense, and I'm glad the Mets got it done. Ji-Man Choi, again, I thought it was nice depth for first base. Split contract's interesting. I think he's good bench bat depth if someone gets hurt. If someone's struggling as well, maybe a guy like Beatty, one of the other youngsters, you can bring him up. He can play some DH. Vientos and Beatty, both going to play DH. They're base types. If they're struggling, you can bring up a guy like Ji-Man Choi, like Lou Voit, and they bring you some nice depth, some nice veteran leadership, some nice veteran play. So I just thought it was good depth, good signings. A little confused why they signed both of them, as they're kind of the same role of player. But Stearns knows them both very well, especially Voit, who played in Milwaukee last year. So, yeah. Final topic for Around the League. It is Alek Manoah. There are some reports that he's back in shape and ready to be a factor in the Blue Jays rotation, which I think is great news for the Blue Jays and great news for him. Obviously, Manoah is one of the better young pitchers in baseball. 2 years ago, had a great season with the Blue Jays. Was a Cy Young contender. Kind of looked to be a future of that organization. And then last year, he kind of completely imploded. There were some reports he came to camp out of shape. He was always a more husky guy, to put it nicely. We've all seen him. We all know what it is. We all know what his body shape is, but it didn't really matter because he played well, and we knew if there's any sport where you can be a little bit bigger and be a world-class athlete, it's baseball. That and football, being offensive line, all that kind of stuff, yada yada yada. But he didn't play very well last year. He was one of the worst pitchers in baseball. Got demoted to Single A which is, it's bad. He wasn't very good in AAA. There were some reports he didn't want to come up to the MLB team, and that he was having some issues with the organization. So that also wasn't great. But I think if he's in the best shape of his life, apparently, if he's back into shape as well, it really helps that Blue Jays team, really helps that rotation, just really helps overall depth. The rotation is one of the Blue Jays' strong suits. So I don't know where he would factor in, but always having that option would be great. Fighting for a spot, probably the 5 spot there. So I think this would be great for the Blue Jays, great for the team, great for himself also to get back out there, be the Alek Manoah we saw a few years ago. Just be a really good player. So I think this is a good sign for things to come for the Blue Jays for the upcoming season, and as well if you're Alek Manoah, who's looking to get your career maybe back on track more than it was. So just to recap here, Liam Hendriks to Boston. I thought it was a really good signing. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a good fit for the player, the team. Really hoping Hendriks does well. Again, one of the more likable guys in the sport. He's had to overcome a lot, so I really want to make sure. I really want to see him succeed and really want to have him find a home in Boston. Brandon Woodruff back to Milwaukee. Good fit for the player. Good fit for the team. Good player. I thought a lot more teams should have been interested in. But in the end, he goes back to the team he was on last year. So good for the Brewers for spending some money. They spent some money this offseason. They traded their best player, but they signed Rhys Hoskins. They signed Woodruff. So good for them for spending money and maybe trying to be different than the past. G-Man Choi, Luke Voigt, good depth signings for the Mets. Thought it made some sense. Good to bring them back. So good signings. Make some sense. And Alek Manoah, apparently he's back into shape and could be a big deal for the Blue Jays, and maybe another X factor, going back to our other segments with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in Toronto, and can make them a lot better and makes their pitching a lot better, even though it was a strong suit. You always need depth. You always need more players, so I think it will make a lot of sense and just makes them a lot better. So thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support really means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review, subscribe to the channel. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram for more content and updates, just more updates about everything in general. I want to thank you so much for tuning in again. This is my first live stream, so hopefully it went well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And thank you so much for the support and tuning in, and have a wonderful day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't that great. I don't wanna